Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. I'm Chris Parker, and I am with my dear friend, Jeroen Hendriks. I met Jeroen probably 1998 or so, somewhere around there, on my first voyage to the Netherlands, and we've been dear friends ever since then. And Jeroen is a serial entrepreneur, has been in so many different industries through his career, currently in AI and e-commerce, which is fascinating and hot, and we're going to get into all of that. Jeroen, thank you so much for joining. Can you please share with us, Jeroen, what do you do, and why do you do what you do?
Yes, Chris, thank you. It is indeed a delight to see you again and being able to spend another hour with you and getting to know you even a little bit more. My name is Jeroen Hendriks. I'm 49 years old. I live with my lovely wife, Leila, and my daughter, Aya, in a little village near Dordrecht. And indeed, I am currently the CEO of Cartup AI. And we started in July. And what we bring to retailers in the Netherlands, first of all, and then in other countries in Europe is artificial intelligence, cutting-edge technology that helps them sell more. How do we do that? We pull product data, we pull visitor data, we do our magic on top of that, and we feed back insights in terms of recommendation widgets, segmentation insights, and all of that good stuff. So that helps them sell more to clients or to their own visitors, get the visitors back more often, understanding when their visitors are threatening to walk away, so we can give them with more discounts and all of that. So that is what we're doing. We are I'm doing it together with a partner. His name is Arvind. He's in Silicon Valley. He's actually developed that technology over the last 3 years, and now we are bringing this to market. So we started this startup only in July, based on existing technology. And so now I'm talking to customers, building a little team, getting the right people in my network on board, starting to talk to investors. So it's an exciting journey, and we've come a long way since July. And I realized there is still 1 million more stations to pass in this train before we get to Never Never Land. But it's an exciting journey. And why do I do what I do? Well, that's a very good question, Chris. And I think my real motivation is the notion of building something that wasn't there before, and doing that with people that give me energy. So I think it's the building part that is the real personal excitement that I get out of it. So the notion of creating something out of nothing, and in 4 or 5 years' time to look back and say, wow, did we do this? Did we just do this in the last couple of years? I think that is the passion behind it. And along the way, I notice when I'm not talking to anybody for 3 or 4 hours, and reviewing GDPR contracts, for example, or that kind of thing, I get down on my energy, so I need to talk to people again. And fortunately, this new role gives me a lot of opportunity to speak and talk with a lot of different people. So that keeps me going. Yeah. How about you, Chris? Because I'd like to speak. I'd like to hear a bit from you as well. What because you just told me that you're about to start a role as CEO again. For me, this is the first time as CEO. So for me, it's a learning journey. So I'd appreciate if we can exchange some thoughts or tips or tricks or things that we're already worried about, or things that we already are looking forward to, in order to have some exchange there as well.
Lovely. Well, as you know, I like doing cool shit with cool people. That's my mission in life. And indeed, in conversations with a conversational AI security startup with some amazing people, that will be the topic of another podcast. But there's a lot of similarities, meaning it's very tech-based. It is very new for a lot of people. So the buyers are maybe not even aware of the opportunity or the problem. It's based on AI secret sauce, magic sauce, which of course, everyone overhypes and understands. There's a lot of parallels there in the journey. So, but thank you for bringing it back to me, and I will return the favor and come back. Building something and engaging with people, Jeroen Hendriks, has been really a theme over the 20 or so years that I've known you. So why is that so important to you? This novelty. I also see in your past working to make things more efficient and more human in a way. I think that's something that you also have worked in. Why are these things more important to you than maybe whatever else you could be doing with your life?
Well, I think if you look at making things more efficient, I think I am a true engineer, meaning I get a kick out of taking things away that don't add value or simplifying things and making it more, I don't know, natural, more logical, more fitting, appropriate, correct. That is, I mean, even in the relationship with people, with the close people around me, with my daughter or my wife, I have a bad habit of constantly correcting them. Yes, I am the engineer that wants to simplify. So that's one. The human side is I happen to have been graduated in socio-technical systems design, which means creating organizations where people are happy so that they are motivated to do their job and improve their job, and the boss is happy because the boss has people that work in a happy way and start to improve their own ways of working. So, and that comes from a long story back to my mother, and let's not go that far. But the notion of what I do now as well, right? So I had a remuneration conversation this morning, and even though we're a startup, so we don't have any money, right? So how can you have a remuneration conversation when you don't have any money? But I was able to give some elements that made his life better. So I corrected some wrongs that were done to him that was not of his making, not by us, but by other people. I corrected that wrong, and I gave him, let's say, a promise of some equity, even if he would not fulfill the vesting period, because he's given already so much, even in the previous iterations of this company. So I am all about equity in that respect, as well as in it has to be with respect and equity and equality, and so the human side to me is important, and integrity and respect and care of the people that I work with is very important to me indeed.
I see that, and I feel that with you and about you on some of the adventures we've had when you were working over in Ireland, I think at a pizza company at one point as well.
Green Isle Foods.
And and it was back then that you were inspiring me with autonomous work teams or self-managing work teams. And this is quite some time ago, before Agile was even a thing. Yeah. And so it was really part of your DNA. How does that respect and equity carry forward to your relationships with your customers? Because you're getting some early wins with some nice logos, with this new company. How do you manage those relationships in inspired by these principles?
Well, it translates into principles such as being customer obsessed. That's not a phrase that I coined. I think the then director of Avanade coined that phrase. But this is what I am. I mean, I am customer obsessed, and I want to do everything in my power to make our service, our product, as good as possible, and to make the journey that the customer go through in embracing our product as pleasant as possible. So that's one. And second thing is, for example, we have COVID now, right? So people don't want to meet face to face. I'm adamant in trying to meet my customers face to face, just to get to know them as a person, and to know who is this person sitting across from me. Mm-hmm. So that is how it has translated so far in the very early journeys of customer engagement that I've had so far. Yeah.
Nice. And how, and this is going back to sort of simplicity scan questions. How would you describe your perfect customer for this solution?
My perfect customer is a 35-year-old board member of a e-commerce company of, let's say, $80 million of revenue, who happens to have a double function of a CMO and a CTO, who has a very inspiring vision on how he wants to apply artificial intelligence in order to personalize the experience he gives to his visitors on his site, but he doesn't have the bandwidth to actually do that himself. He can't get the right data scientists on board. He can't spend another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years to create models and algorithms and to teach them in order to get to the level of Amazon. So he's reaching out to us, or we reach out to him, and he says, well, I see that you have the cutting edge technology. 1, 2, I see that you have the willingness to adapt your roadmap to my desires, because I have aspirations that are fruitful for other retailers as well. So join up with me, let me be your design partner, and let's build some technology together that is satisfying my vision as this e-commerce CMO, CTO, but it can also help you, let's say, populate your roadmap with functionality that is good for the whole e-commerce branch as a whole. Nice. Yes, please. Let's sign up.
And that 35-year-old CTO, CMO, just before we got on this call, I crafted with you a introduction note that I sent to almost that perfect description of a person that I happen to know from some work I did before. And what we wrote together, it was a dear friend of mine is managing a startup which empowers retailers to achieve true personalization. This is through a simple and affordable SaaS solution. He's done an outside-in analysis of your site and believes he can provide an 18 to 13% increase on sales. Can I introduce you? That was all power. That is all clear, direct power. How are you going to help him or her achieve a 13% increase on sales? Because, when that's true, they will just give you their money. So,
yeah. So
how do you do this? How do you make this magic happen?
It's not even that difficult. So we consume all product information. We consume all clickstream data. So we know and put in our Hadoop big data environment all clicks that any visitor does. We apply algorithms on that data so that we see patterns and segmentation. We apply algorithms on the data so that we can deduce thousands and thousands and thousands of features. And we see patterns in behavior, so we can start creating recommendations to visitors. So that if person A puts in his basket a Lego Harry Potter castle, we can recommend the Lego Harry Potter train, not because the e-commerce manager has made that bundle, but because we see that people that buy A also buy B. And that's just a simple example. So we use that to populate widgets that we place on their website, on their e-commerce shop. And we have 14 of those widgets. And those widgets, they provide a variety of recommendations that entice people to buy, and to buy more, and to buy more expensive, to buy more in the same session. So it increases your basket size. People feel personally approached. So if you have a personalized experience, so they come back more often. So the lifetime value of a customer increases. And that's just the simple plug and play stuff that we do. We also have a very compelling personalized search module. We have an absolutely unique review module where we read all customer reviews of a product. We deduce features from the natural language, and we interpret sentiment from the language about that feature. So we can feed back to the site a feature list with sentiment per feature, as an example of something that I haven't seen no competitor do just yet. And then we have a whole layer of more complicated data services. We can, for example, we have a power tools company customer that we tell as soon as Joe Bloggs enters the site, that we can say, this is a contractor, not a consumer, and he's a carpenter, not a gardener. so that our client can actually give and present the banner of the carpenters as opposed to the gardeners, and so that our customer can actually present prices without VAT as opposed to with VAT.
Wow.
So we provide that segmentation data. Now, obviously, next on our roadmap is actually helping him place the banners and merchandising. So this is the very first early stages of the segmentation service. Yeah.
It sounds great. How do you, because this is AI and therefore it needs to learn. What is the learning journey of the machine? Like, is it just set and forget and let it figure itself out on the Harry Potter castle and the castle Harry Potter car? It figures that out, or do you have to seed it with something? Where do you start with that, measure of success so it can start optimizing?
Well, there's two ways of doing it, and we choose one of the two. The option that we choose is we apply hot start, and my partner tells me that not many competitors do that. So we take, let's say, 3 months worth of historic order data, or preferably even historic clickstream data, and we spend about a week doing data modeling and feeding that data to our models, and actually doing some, let's say, test and check data, so we can actually do a hot start in training the model with the historic data, so that when we go live after a week, the customer already is faced with bundles that have been resulted from the past 3 months of buying history. Right. That's step number one. Then customers obviously do their thing, and our models get trained and trained and trained and trained. And our performance normally saturates around 4 to 6 months. So with 4 to 6 months of data, we have optimal performance. Yeah.
And how do you measure optimal performance? Like, and I'm also coming back to the 8 to 13% increase on sales.
Sure.
Just once you've installed the machine, then basically you've removed the base case, in essence, and other things change as well. So how do you measure performance, or what does optimal mean?
Yeah, that's an important point, and a challenge to the whole notion of what the sector calls attribution. So how do you attribute a certain transaction, let's say, caused by your solution as opposed to natural in the shop? And that's called attribution. So what the industry standard is to say that, so if we have a widget that is underneath a cart, and the customer is, while he's actually doing the transaction of paying for the cart, sees underneath his cart a widget that says, oh, by the way, here's your wish list. If he then clicks on an article in the wish list and adds that to cart, that is attributed to our sales. So we claim that's because that widget was there, right? And then you can go into a whole notion of, what about if I recommend a certain product right now, but the customer comes back tomorrow to buy that product? So in the industry, there is a negotiation on how many days can you still attribute that sale to you. Yeah. We currently say it's only attributed if it is actually happening in the same session. But competitors, they go to 10 to 15 days of attribution, and you can obviously negotiate how many days that is. We currently say only in the same session. We allocate it to us. We attribute it to us. But then we can just measure how many transactions, clicks, purchases go through our widgets. Yeah, that's how we measure performance.
Nice, and this is a one of my hobbies is technical architecture, and I've had the privilege of having you walk me through your architecture, and it is it's a SaaS-based API connectable solution, so then it's relatively easy to implement. What are the risks? Why would people not do this? Because if you have an e-commerce site of volume enough that you have things to actually recommend, why would they not do this? Is it just not a priority, or they already have something else in place?
No, there is two very realistic use cases why you should not really touch our product. One is when I started talking to Intertoys, COVID had just started. They said, no, we can't embrace your solution because we have not enough fulfillment capacity. So basically the trucks are full. So we can't sell anymore because that will decrease our service levels.
Yeah.
I was also talking to a surfing gear shop in Friesland. He said, we can't get the supply. So because of COVID, everybody's buying online. We got a lot more sales. We can't get the shops filled. So we don't have enough supply. So I'm making a bit of a joke out of it, but that is the only risk there is that the supply chain is not ready to satisfy the increased demand. And those are realistic responses I got.
It reminds me of I don't doubt you, but it all reminds me of how I've been trained, and maybe you've been trained when you're being interviewed when you're younger, to always turn the what is your weakness into a positive. So it's like, yeah, I'm just a workaholic. You know, I just work way too hard. So it's I'm delighted to celebrate this solution with you and with my network and the community on this. How can people test it? Meaning, like, what would the hurdle rate or the effort or cost to say, hey, okay, Jeroen, I'll bite. You know, let's give it a run. Maybe do a little A/B, see how it flies. You say you need 4 months. Okay, let's set and forget for 4 months, and then measure performance. You know, in one region or another. How easy is it for someone to engage with you and give it a run?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Chris. Let me answer that, right? So we are currently preparing for a pilot with one of the Netherlands' largest drogisterij chains. So shampoo, toothbrush, toothpaste, all that stuff. So within, let's say, 3 weeks, we can get the whole solution live in, let's say, 5 sessions of an hour or an hour and a half. Some with the e-commerce department, some with the technical department. What we need is a product batch file, so we can also read from product data feed watch, which is a industry standard of sharing product information. And then, so that's one session to talk about the specs of that file and whether it's batch or whether we can source it from that data feed watch. And then we have a session on placing our listener file, which is like a 6 lines of JavaScript code into the site that allows us to consume all the clickstream data. Then we have a session about placing the widgets. Again, some JavaScript code you have to place in your e-commerce site, there where you want to see the widgets and which widget you want to see, obviously. Then there's another session about configuring these widgets. So what's the look and feel, which font do you want for it to look like your own font and things like that. And that's basically it. And obviously there's 1 or 2 more sessions on KPIs and planning and all of that. And then you're live. And we have a 3-month not happy money back guarantee because we're a startup and I want to take all the risk away from our customers. So, and I believe in our offering. I believe in that we indeed will increase the sales. So even if your sales increase, if you didn't like the color of my eyes, I'll give you the money back after 3 months. So there's no questions asked there.
But wait, if performance is really meaningful from 4 to 6 months, why is the guarantee only through 3 months?
No. The performance saturates after 4 to 6 months. So for a very small customer, the break-even point is like in month 2. For a large customer, its break-even point is within month 1. And for average customers, it's like let's say after month 1. So everybody will have his money back of the full investment for the full year after 3 months. But still, if you're not happy, we'll give you your funds back. Yeah? So if it doesn't fit or your marketing man changes and comes with another solution or whatever, there may be some options where that happens. The point I'm trying to make is there is a definite guarantee from our side that this will work, it will be simple, and it will increase your sales.
Nice. Maybe you're not charging enough.
That may be so. We are still no. I mean, we're building our price model. We have to see what the price point is. We are a real startup, so that's the thing to say. you have to be willing to work with us as a design partner. There will be some articles on our website not entirely ready yet. There will be some rough edges. I, as a CEO, will be your customer success manager. So we are a startup, and there is still some rough edges and some fringes to work with.
Nice. Well, this all excites me, and I'm hoping people are also getting triggered by it, and I will reach out to you. I'd like to loop back to, in this sort of the last sort of topic before we wrap up, on leadership team, because as you mentioned, I'm in a discussion, and those that have been listening to the podcast, they know I do three things. Sort of I call corporate business roles. CTO, CIO, maybe CEO coming up. Also coaching and mentoring, and then in independent film production. So I have a portfolio of activities. The way that I'm orienting on how and if I want to work with this new AI company is actually using the simplicity scan, the one-page simplicity scan with 15 areas on it as a way to check if we're actually on the same page going into this venture, because this is a very emotional venture, which requires time and money and investment and blood and sweat and tears and, of course, joy and celebration. How is it that you are, or how you have come together with Arvind in this case, and I look forward to having him on the podcast sometime soon. How is it that you have reached on an alignment and an understanding and a trust with Arvind in order really to dedicate your life to, at least this chapter of your life, to this enterprise?
That's a good question, and a very important question. And that trust is a critical success factor for any startup. And during the investor pitches that we've done last week, I learned about that notion. And the last two of those pitches, I started comparing it to a marriage. And I said, we are beyond our honeymoon weeks, and we have had our fights, and we have had our arguments, and we have built a certain level of respect and patience to hear each other out, and some mechanism on how to come up with if we have a disagreement, how do we make decisions. So we've gone through that process. That doesn't answer your question, but it addresses some point of it. Mm-hmm. So I am a person that is very much open and upfront, and I have no barriers or a good listener will see right through me. I have no secrets. So my default position in any conversation is that. And I have been speaking with Arvind for a month in a row before we decided to do this venture together. And he appreciated my expertise, my thoroughness, my level of detail, my surgical precision, as he calls it, and my enthusiasm to go to the market. And after a couple of months of talking in a different context, we said, okay, let's start doing this together in a startup. And we did. And Arvind is the mother and father of this technology. And he is the president of the company, being the main shareholder, while I am the CEO. So he's technically my boss. But he respects my decisions. He gives me autonomy. And that gives me the willingness to look for consensus in everything that I do that is important and strategic. So there is a certain mechanism, a certain modus. And while he is the president and the mother and the father of what we're doing, he's also at the same time modest, and he's not stubborn, and he's willing to listen to reason. So that just gels. I think that is the answer to that question.
I really, really look forward to meeting him because, again, knowing you for probably 2 decades, the fact that you have selected to work with someone is it's a tremendous vote of confidence. Anyhow, so I can't wait to meet Arvind. So, Jeroen, I'm going to do something right now that I've never done before. I'm going to ask my guest if do you have any questions for me now before we wrap up? Because you are always very inquisitive. Is there anything that has sparked during this conversation that you'd like to come back to me on?
Yeah. So again, you're starting a journey that has somewhat the same look and feel and color as my journey. So what are your three challenges that you're concerned with most? What are your biggest fears coming up?
Fears or challenges?
Well, fear is a big word, but what are the three things that you think about, like, that really needs some mind space to figure that out and to make sure that I have to do that correctly or rightly. So what are your main three areas of where you still need to grow, where you still need to have some doubts, to where you don't have the answers just yet, and that also kind of worries you a little bit. So what are your the biggest minds topics for the 6 months coming up?
I would say customer, team, and cash are the things that immediately come to mind. So one of the reasons that I'm concerned about customer is, although we have a glorious network through some other activities that the founders are involved in into a customer base, what I've observed is the technical co-founder, the president and mother in our situation, is very tech oriented and they've been very busy building before validating, and that honestly scares me to death. Because of the potential waste there, and because of how many times have I built and prayed that they would come. As I've been challenging you politely before we got on the phone, when are you scaling here? Get more stripes and more bruises and learn really what is that thing that they value and as a customer that's really creating value and that they're willing to pay for. So one concern is, are we going to respect that enough? And then again, that's my role to bring that to the table. Regarding the team, there's 4 people involved, and all of them are very experienced in these types of initiatives. And while that is a strength, it could also be a weakness, because some of them are also really visionary. And if the vision and their baby becomes more important than my first concern, then that might be distracting. Again, using the simplicity scan as a discussion and alignment tool, I'm fortunately able to have conversations like this with them, and that is part of that coming together, journey. And then there's cash flow, because although in the network of founders there is cash available, how quickly, and we do not want to seek outside funding. So for me, the question is, how quickly can we convert based on what they have already built into, minimum lovable product that a customer would actually pay for, so then we could, achieve a break even as soon as possible. And fortunately, the way we've crafted that is to say, well, let's take a 6-month horizon with very dedicated roles. None of us on board full time, so this is going to be a fractional thing. So to keep the costs down, there's risk there as well, lack of focus. But in my case, I just want to be laser-like focused on converting to those 10 using customers, and ideally, half of those are paying, because there's some large logos that, quite frankly, if that logo was involved, the credibility that comes with that would be phenomenal. But even then, I would like them to pay, because if people pay, they value. So yeah, I think customer focus, customer obsession. Can we actually get there out of our tech roots? Team, meaning, are we able to find the roles and the positions and the respect and the responsibilities of different team members, and then doing that in a way which isn't unnecessarily burning cash. And because cash flow is king when you're a startup. And how do you just focus on the exact right things to do, which of course we won't. We're going to fuck up a lot, to make sure that every euro, every dollar we spend matters, and simply looking for the sweet spot. And so in 6 months, let's check back in, and either we have found that sweet spot, or in my case, I would rather not than pursue that as an initiative for myself.
It touches some very important points, right? So one of the things that I got back in those funding conversations with investors is that if people come from a corporate environment, for example, they come from big positions, so they bring that same energy into a startup, and it can have some effects like people don't want to roll up their sleeves because they've always been managing, so they're just not willing to roll up their sleeves, or of course egos start to play a big role. So that team thing is very, very important. And indeed, you have the right tools and the right demeanor and the right character and the right humbleness and insight to play that role. So I think they are blessed. They have been blessed having you as a CEO.
Thank you for that. Those beautiful words. And they seem very comfortable as well. And I want to irritate and agitate that a bit to make sure that we're having those hard conversations and not being too comfortable until the proverbial the poop hits the fan. And then because that's when these things will really come into play. So lovely. Well, Jeroen, I knew I went off my normal script and invited a question, but you've always got such cool questions. So that's why I couldn't help it. Your inquisitive mind is a beautiful thing. So we are way over time. And I don't care because this was fun, and that's what this is all about. So Jeroen Hendriks, everyone, you can find Jeroen on LinkedIn at Jeroen Hendriks, and also at ebullient.com/podcast/Jeroen Hendriks, where you can find the link to his LinkedIn and to his company and other contact details. So Jeroen, thank you so much for joining. It's been, as usual, a delight and a journey of discovery. So thanks, Jeroen.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's good to see you.
Learn more at ebullient.com/podcast.